Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today. I'm Constable Bancroft Wright, and I will be your moderator. We have called this press conference to provide an update as well as to announce a reward offer in relation to the mistaken identity homicide, which occurred on Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. On that day, Jason Ramkishun was shot while driving northbound on 410 near Courtney Park Drive in Mississauga. Jason's father, mother, sister, and brother-in-law are here with us today. A statement will be read on their behalf shortly in the proceedings. With us today is Chief Nishan Duryapa, Inspector Marty Ottaway from the Homicide and Missing Persons Bureau, and Detective Robert Bryant, who is the lead investigator for the case. Chief and Inspector will be taking questions after the Inspector reads, and there are microphones set up for that opportunity. I would like to remind you that this is an ongoing investigation and that some of the details of the case cannot be shared. This is to ensure that future proceedings are not compromised. At the conclusion of this press conference, a news release will be issued. A video of this press conference will be made available on the Peel Regional Police YouTube channel, which can be accessed from our website. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Chief Nishan Duryapa.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at this news conference and our appeal and the reward that we are announcing. As you know, that illegal firearms continue to pose a threat to our community and also not just this geographic area, across many borders. As you know, on Tuesday, November 13th, 2018, at approximately 12:55, 23-year-old Jason Ramkishun was tragically shot while traveling in his vehicle on the 410 near Courtney Park Drive in the city of Mississauga. This senseless act of this innocent young man on his way home from work while he was helping support his schooling is a tragic circumstance that we all are having difficulty rationalizing. The injuries that Jason suffered, unfortunately, required him transported to a trauma center where he later succumbed to his injuries. Investigators do believe that a second shooting on that 410 on the 21st was related to the November 13th incident involving Jason. Jason, I must say again, was an innocent young man who was not the intended target on November 13th. He was not known to police. The remarkable investigative team that is led by Detective Rob Bryant and Inspector Martin Ottaway have been working tirelessly and religiously around the clock to bring these people responsible to justice. No matter how diligently our investigators work, we know it is critical for us to receive the cooperation of those in the public that can assist us as we move forward with this investigation. We are continued to be committed to the safety of this region. As you know, there are many incidents that have happened in recent past. I'm very proud of the investigative team, from which in total there are over 80 investigators committed to homicide investigations in this region. But somewhere out there, somebody is watching and has information of the person or persons responsible for the senseless death of Jason Ramkishun. And I appeal for you to contact our investigators or Crime Stoppers. I will now pass the microphone on to Inspector Marty Ottaway of the Homicide and Missing Persons Investigative Bureau to speak more about this ongoing investigation.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, and thank you, everyone, for coming. I wanted to provide an update on the 2018 shooting death of Jason Ramkishun. Tomorrow will be the one-year anniversary of Jason's tragic and senseless death. In an attempt to further advance our investigation, we are offering a $25,000 reward. The reward is for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible. With me today are members of Jason's family, including his father, Malcolm, mother, Maya, sister, Amanda, and husband, Bizram. I have met and spoke with the Ramkishun family in private already, but I want to publicly say that the loss of Jason Ramkishun was tragic and heartfelt, not only to the family here today, but also other family members, friends, and the community. I offer my deepest condolences once again to them all and everyone else affected by this senseless act. Now I'll provide you some background on the case, and later I'll take your questions. On Tuesday, November 13th, 2018, at approximately 12:55 a.m., emergency medical services were alerted to a single vehicle car accident on the shoulder of northbound Highway 410. Upon arrival, Jason Ramkishun was found to be in his 2014 Honda Accord, suffering from gunshot wounds. He was transported to Sunnybrook Trauma Center where, despite everyone's best efforts, he succumbed to his injuries. We determined that Jason was coming home from work that night from a business location in Mississauga where he worked as a security guard. He was traveling north on Highway 410 by Courtney Park Drive when another vehicle pulled alongside his car and unknown suspects opened fire. 1 week after Jason was shot and killed, a second shooting took place on Highway 410. On Tuesday, November 20th, 2018, shortly after 11 p.m., a male victim was driving his 2013 Honda Accord northbound on the 410 just north of Derry Road when a vehicle pulled alongside him and unknown suspects started shooting. The victim's vehicle was struck numerous times and was hit by gunfire. The victim was able to drive himself to Brampton Civic Hospital, where he was later transported to Sunnybrook Trauma Center to be treated for a gunshot wound. He has since recovered from his injuries. Based on our investigation, we have determined that 2 firearms were used in the shooting incident, while 1 was used in the shooting involving Jason. These 2 incidents are related. With the assistance of the Center of Forensic Sciences, it has been established that the firearm used in the homicide of Jason Ramkishun is also one of the 2 firearms used in the second 410 shooting on November 20th, 2018. This firearm has since been recovered by police this past August in an unrelated investigation. Through our investigation, it is our belief that the victim shot in the second shooting on November 20th, 2018 was the intended target on both 410 shootings. Jason Ramkishun was tragically shot and killed on November 13th in a case of mistaken identity. Both Jason and the second victim drove the same type of vehicle. As I stated, tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of Jason Ramkishun's death. This was a senseless tragedy perpetrated by criminals who have no regard for human life. Jason was loved by his family and is dearly missed. Jason's family have prepared a statement that they wanted to read to you today. They have asked that I read it on their behalf this morning, as it would be too emotional for them to read at this time. As you can appreciate, this tragic event has had a tremendous emotional toll on Jason's family, and as such, they will not be taking any questions at the conclusion of this statement. I will now read the statement provided by the family. On the morning of November 13th, 2018, our family woke to find that Jason had not returned home from his evening shift as a security guard. Morning news reports would soon detail a police investigation that had shut down the Highway 410. There was a single vehicle off the roadway that resembled Jason's car. Our concerns for Jason's whereabouts and safety grew. Police officers knocked on our door and informed us that Jason was the victim of a shooting that happened on the Highway 410. Jason was dead. Jason was a family man, a good man, and a good friend. He wanted to get back to his community and became a security guard to further his own interests in law enforcement. On the night he was taken from us, he had finished his shift as a security guard, a job which he knew he loved. He also loved his car, and he took very good care of it. It meant a lot to him, and the pain is even greater to us that when Jason was taken from us, the car he loved so much was also destroyed. Jason could have been your child, your sibling, or your parent. It has been almost a year since we received the devastating news to our family that Jason would never be coming home again. The pain and suffering is as fresh as when we first heard the news. I would like to thank the investigators for all they have done to bring closure and justice to our family. I pray that whoever's responsible for this will be caught. But if people in the community know, please come forward and do the right thing. Rest in peace, Jason. We love you. I want to thank the Ramkishun family for being here with us in this very difficult and trying time and for sharing these words with us. Thanks. We are appealing to the public who have information into these shootings to contact us. We believe a number of people have knowledge of what took place and could help us solve this case. We ask that anyone with information relating to this investigation contact the Homicide and Missing Persons Bureau at 905-453-2121, extension 3205, or through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS, or online at www.peelcrimestoppers.ca. I will now take some of your questions.
Dr. Catherine from Global News, how cooperative has that man who was shot a week later, the intended target, been to your investigation?
We have spoke to him. I just won't be able to get into what was talked with our investigators as far as his statement goes. But he did speak with us. I just can't get into any further detail than that.
What about the recent shooting on the 410? Is there any indication it could be connected to the ones from last year?
There is no connection whatsoever.
Inspector, I think what you're trying to do is to appeal to, it's Joe from the Toronto Sun. Is that the mic or is that sorry. You're trying to appeal to somebody to come forward of who's behind this. And do you think that there's perhaps a family member, something like that, of the shooters that could come forward to that kind of thing? Or is it that perhaps somebody in the public knows something? What exactly, because there's a reward here, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask about, was the idea of a reward is kind of rare in these things, but that may be something that will help get some interest. Anyway, in that area, those things.
I'm confident that there's people out in the community that know what's happened that night. They know people involved in the shooting. And it's those people that we're appealing to do the right thing and contact us. I think everyone could see how much the family is hurting here behind us today and see how difficult of a time they're still having. Even we're coming up to a year since Jason's death. So I'm hoping that people who are watching this and could see the pain the family's going through, that they do the right thing and contact us and help us solve this case.
I just have one follow-up to that, and that is that this is so horrific. It's all horrific, but that this man was going home from his security guard job and was gunned down just because he had the car that looked like who they were going for. It's just intolerable. And I'd like you to comment on that, you know, as a member of the community as well.
It's completely, everyone should be outraged. It's senseless that, you know, here you have Jason, who's, you know, working hard as a security guard. He wants to get into law enforcement. He was going to Sheridan College, taking a police foundations course. You know, he had his life on the right path, and simply by returning home and being in the same car as someone else, that ended up costing him his life. It's beyond words to even describe.
Inspector, to be fair, these rewards that police offer rarely ever pay out. And often it's because people, it's not worth it. They're afraid that if they come forward, they're going to have to testify in a court. And if this is gang-related, it's, you know, that they put a target on themselves. What kind of reassurance can you give to someone, a member of the public who thinks they can help, that they won't, you know, be in any danger?
Well, I can tell you that we've had many homicide cases where witnesses have come forward with critical information against in dangerous circumstances. And we have, they've always been protected and been taken care of, and there's never ever once been an issue with a witness on those cases in the past. I've even had the same situation myself when I was in homicide as a detective many years ago, where we've had witnesses come forward in cases involving organized crime and such. And we have processes in place to protect them.
That being said, do you believe this shooting was the work of someone involved with an organized crime group?
No, by no means is this involved with traditional organized crime at all.
Can you speak to what the beef was about?
I can't speak to those aspects of the investigation right now. I just have to maintain the integrity. The case is very much still ongoing.
Inspector, Ian Colpitz with the Mississauga News. I'm just wondering, are there any details on what the second shooting victim was doing on the highway at the time, whether he was coming home from work like Jason as well, or any other details you could provide?
The second victim was traveling northbound on the Highway 410. I can't get into aspects of where he was coming from or if it was from work, but he was taking the highway to go from one place to another.
Maybe we could ask the chief a couple of questions, if it's okay. Chief, I have two. First thing, that the Mayor Brown in Brampton brought up the idea of the cameras. I don't know if you want to comment on that and also update us if there's anything new, if you think that will help. And the second question, I'll just throw it out now, on the reward. It's something that I've been pushing for, this idea of giving people a reason, a financial reason to help, because it is very tricky. Obviously, they can find out where you are and shoot you at any time. And I wanted you to comment on that. Will we see more of that? And would you like to see some sort of a funded, through government and private enterprise to help on more investigations, and not just specific ones, but on a lot of them to help get people in custody? Those are my two questions.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Joe. I'll speak first to the reward component. As you know, I think we as an investigative team, as a police service, can do a lot with what we see when we respond to an incident, what we gather from speaking to people. But the other element of it is that we can't turn the dial on an investigation without people coming forward that knew the dynamics before the incident, post-incident, maybe the history leading up to the incident. Those are all very critical pieces of information as it relates to the investigative team putting something before the courts. And as you know, it's one thing to have an idea who might have been responsible for something. It's another thing for us to ensure that we get it through the court system in a watertight way that's prosecutable, because ultimately that's the full justice that we can bring to a victim and victim's family. Now, that being said, we've told people call because there's a reward, because it's the right thing to do. There's also other motives. We recognize that people would and may consider providing information to us. And I think, as Inspector Ottaway alluded to, we know for sure that there are people that know and have details. And so whatever the motive is behind them, and if a $25,000 reward is an accelerator to that, we are willing to pull out all the stops in order to accelerate that process.
Just before you answer the other question, the $25,000, is that Peel Police money, or did it come from somewhere else?
That's correct. So, our process, and it's probably similar to any other police agency, the investigative team proposes it as an option, and it's my job to go to the Police Services Board, which they were, of course, in this circumstance, tragic circumstance, absolutely willing to support us moving forward. I should also say, though, Joe, is that there's other systems in place that have been tried and tested for many, many years. The Crime Stoppers option is a anonymous way that's always existed for people to come forward. It is, as Inspector Ottaway communicated, process and almost an institution unto itself that the courts and the justice system have acknowledged as an important way for us to receive information. So, we have presented a couple of options. And there has always been the opportunity for people to just pick up the phone and call us as it relates to that. Speaking to the CCTV cameras, we are, as always, any piece of information that we can get to help identify descriptions, time, location, travel is always welcomed. You've probably heard me say before, many of our investigations are resolved through the ability for us to obtain video. And that could come from a private commercial property, a person's residence, a gas station. And, roadways, as you know, are the conduit for people to travel in a variety of different areas, let alone the locations where some of these incidents have happened. It has been always my opinion that I would welcome additional opportunities to obtain video. There is, none of my investigators would say that to the contrary. We would absolutely welcome that. As to, you know, where the sources of video come from municipally or on provincial assets, we would be, and as I mentioned to Mayor Brown and also to our ministries, transportation and the Solgen, is they are all added and welcomed assets if it's possible. Clearly, there's some things that we need to work to do, and you know, is it the panacea to resolve these incidents? No. However, you know, our response to investigations like this require a totality of different solutions, and that's just another one that, you know, might not be the driving narrative, literally, but it is certainly a welcomed addition to it if we can get.
You know, thank you. I think I was hoping maybe we could talk to Marty again, Inspector Ottaway, because I have an idea on something else. Maybe, if you don't mind, tell us what we know, so the people know what to look for. The car, what you do know, sort of a synopsis of it.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
just recap it a little bit, so.
like I said in my statement, we know that these two shootings are linked. We know that forensically through evidence we found at the scene. We've recovered the firearm, and we know through testing that's the same firearm that was used in both shootings. And we also know, as you can see from the pictures that were up previously, that both the victim and who we believe to be the intended target drove the exact same vehicles, and were both traveling the same route the nights that they were shot. So,
Do you have any idea of, because you know about the weapons, you know about vehicles or anything about the shooters? Not
right.
yet?
The investigation's still ongoing, and there's certain aspects I won't be able to get into
Right.
today, unfortunately. But we are still
Do you
very
have a
much.
description for the public of a car or anything like that at this point?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Do you have any video of the suspect from either of those shooting occasions?
We've collected lots of video from the highway and other areas, and that has and is still being analyzed, but there's nothing that I can share today.
So you can't give us a ballpark of kind of what, is it an SUV, a sedan, even to keep it generic so people know what kind of vehicle the suspect was in?
Right now, I can't for investigative reasons. I can't get into what, if anything we have. There won't be anything I can expand on that aspect.
So one Honda Accord was 2014, one was 2013, correct?
That's correct.
The chief, you know, kind of alluded to it, that it's one thing to call up and try to get the reward and sort of this is who we think did it. It's a whole other thing to put together a case. And now you've sort of confirmed that you have different things that you don't want to discuss. But there's somebody watching this that'll watch our material that, because you've said that there are people that know who this is. What should they do? And because there is a reward money, but also you said that there should be some safety considerations for them as well. What should they do?
Well, they should do the right thing, like I said, and come forward and talk to our investigators and tell us information that we know. I think everyone, like I said, and I'll say it again, and we all saw it, this family is hurting. It's hurting very deeply. And the circumstances of this case, if the whole, like everyone in the public should be outraged by it, that alone should be enough, let alone adding a reward for them to come forward and do the right thing. And for those who do have information, I can assure you there are processes that we have in place that they would be safe in coming to speak to us. We have many different avenues on how we can deal with those matters.
Where in the 410 did this happen?
410, just north of Courtney Park.
Sorry if you already mentioned this, but do you know how many suspects you're looking for? Do you know how many?
I can't say right now how many that we're looking for in both cases. Other than I can say there's multiple, but I just can't say how many. That's still very much part of our investigation to confirm who was responsible for both. Okay, thank you everyone for coming.